Welcome back, traders, to another market preview, this time for the week of August 18th. And let's jump right into it with the dollar index on the weekly chart. So last week I was looking for price to come up into this fair value gap because we had swept the sell side below the swing low, and you can see that we bounced quite nicely, but we didn't get that. Instead, we did have a slight decline, and now I'm actually thinking that price will come into this fair value gap down here. And I'm looking at this up candle as an order block, and I have the mean threshold drawn out with the body of the candle. Now, when we get down into the daily chart, you can see why I think we're going to be heading down into this lower fair value gap instead of coming back up to here. Although price could still do that, but I'm favoring the downside for right now. Now, when price gets down here into this fair value gap, it's a matter of watching to see if it's going to be support or if we're going to trade through it. If we are going to trade through it, then I will be looking for the sell side below the swing low. Now on the daily chart, this is that weekly fair value gap that I was looking for price to drop into, but let's take a look here and then zoom in just a little bit. So last week I was looking for price to come up into this fair value gap, but we didn't get that. We had a drop on Tuesday, then Thursday we came back and refilled this fair value gap, and then we dropped back down on Friday. So because of this rebalancing right here, this is pretty much a balanced price range here. So that's why I'm looking for price on the dollar index to go down lower. Here's S&P on the weekly chart, and I was looking for last week for price to come up into this fair value gap, but we got a really big rally. It exceeded my expectation. It rallied all the way up into this order block here. If you look at these two up candles, it is going into it, and we do have a old fair value gap that I'm using as an inversion fair value gap. So going into this week, I think it's going to be very important that we keep an eye on price in this level right here to see if this inversion fair value gap is going to act as a ceiling or if it gets traded through. If it does get traded through, then I'm looking for the highs to get taken once again. So looking at the daily chart last week, you can see my Fibonacci here. I was looking for price to come up into this OTE, into this daily order blocks, which we did get, but price rallied further than I had expected. In fact, it closed above the mean threshold of this order block. So I'm looking for price to be bullish going into this week, maybe even taking out this high right here. But there is just so many higher time frame levels right here. We have a daily volume imbalance. There's that weekly inversion fair value gap, the weekly order block. And if you take the Fibonacci here and use this high back here, you can see that we are in that OTE range right now. So even though I am looking for price to take out this buy side above the swing high here, I do recognize that there are so many different price levels right here. So we could leave relative highs here and retrace back down into this equilibrium. So really, I want to keep my eye on how price behaves at this price level. Now moving on to Nasdaq, on the weekly chart, you can see that we do have relative lows here, so this could be a draw on liquidity in the future. But right now we got a rally back up into this fair value gap. I'm using this as an inversion fair value gap, and we have this weekly order block here. I'm using this lower wick and I'm drawing this red rectangle out to signify the price level for the lower part of this wick on the order block. But let's go down into the daily for a little bit more detail. So on the daily chart, similar to S&P, I was looking for price last week to come up into this OTE level and into this daily order block. And just like S&P, price exceeded my expectations and rallied above the mean threshold of this order block. If I went ahead and take the Fibonacci retracement back up to this high, we can see that we are starting to reach into the longer time frame OTE. And just like S&P, there's a lot of higher time frame PD arrays in this level right here. The green lines here, we have that weekly inversion fair value gap. And on the daily for Nasdaq, it's a little bit more clear, but we've got this high, low, higher high, and then displacement lower. So I'm using these three down candles right here as a breaker, as a bearish breaker. So which lines up with the weekly order block wick that I outlined. We do have OTE right at the middle of that weekly wick. And there is also a daily volume imbalance if you look very closely over here. So there's just a lot of PD arrays right here that I don't think price will break through, although we are going to take out the swing high and come into this daily order block. So I just really want to keep an eye on price as it reaches to this level. I think we could get some kind of resistance and come back into more of an equilibrium price level. So that's pretty much it for me this week. It's nice to finally see some inverse correlation between the dollar and the indices. Dollar going down while indices are going up. And I do think they're going to continue in that same direction starting off this week. but it's important to keep an eye on the PD arrays I've outlined to see whether they will be used to turn price in the opposite direction or will they bust through and continue the trend. But I hope you were able to get something out of this. Don't forget to leave this video a like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I greatly appreciate you helping out my channel. But until next time guys, safe trading.